I want to make it absolutely clear what is happening. The United States is planning to make a contribution of $10 billion to what has been described as the border of peace. On the surface, that number sounds impressive. Politicians present it as a gesture of goodwill, an investment in stability, and a commitment to international cooperation. But when you pause to consider the scale of modern warfare and the historical context of American military spending, that $10 billion becomes almost laughable. It is equivalent to about 2 weeks of active military operations, an amount that is dwarfed by the cost of conflicts that have lasted for years and consumed hundreds of billions of dollars in public resources. And yet, this is being framed as a major accomplishment. The public is being asked to accept it as a symbol of leadership and vision. But the truth is far darker. The man who announced this contribution has a long track record of bankrupting every business he has ever touched. It is not a matter of incompetence alone. It is a matter of greed, a consistent pattern of extracting value from other people while leaving devastation behind. And at the very same time, this administration is actively involved in conflicts and military interventions around the globe. While claiming to be promoting peace, the policies in practice are often aggressive, entangling the United States in new conflicts and exacerbating existing crises. My name is Siri Crow, and today we are going to unpack what is happening with the so-called Port of Peace, which, according to most investigative reports, is less a diplomatic achievement and more of a criminal enterprise, a hub for the consolidation of power and money in ways that evade transparency and accountability. This is a project that brings together individuals widely accused of corruption and human rights abuses, from Donald Trump to Benjamin Netanyahu, Vladimir Putin, Viktor Orban, and other powerful autocrats. These figures, along with their allies, appear to be working together to establish a parallel system of international influence, effectively attempting to supplant the role of the United Nations and create a new world order structured around personal and nationalistic interests rather than shared global governance. But let us focus for a moment on the financial aspect. The United States taxpayer is footing the bill. $10 billion will be taken from the Treasury, from the resources of ordinary citizens, and redirected toward this initiative. That is $10 billion that could have been spent on schools, healthcare, housing, or infrastructure improvements. Yet it is being funneled into a project whose primary beneficiaries are not the American people, but a small group of elites and foreign allies who have long operated outside the bounds of ethical accountability. And this is happening on top of other questionable financial maneuvers, such as the lawsuit against the Internal Revenue Service for another $10 billion. Once again, ordinary citizens are effectively paying for a political and financial game that benefits a select few while the public bears the risk. The situation reads like a narrative from a cinematic universe. It is as if Marvel, James Bond, and Austin Powers all collided in a single dystopian storyline. Reality itself seems stranger than fiction. And while it is tempting to dismiss these developments as political theater, the consequences are very real. They are material, measurable, and profoundly affecting the lives of ordinary Americans. Let us turn our attention to the corporate and technological dimensions of this issue. A parallel scandal involving private information, corporate interests, and government complicity has emerged. For instance, the private data of millions of Americans has reportedly been misappropriated by corporate entities linked to high-profile tech executives, including Elon Musk. The Department of Justice under the current administration appears unwilling to prosecute or even investigate these actions with the rigor one would expect. Meanwhile, billion-dollar payouts, lawsuits, and settlements continue to be leveraged for political or personal gain, leaving the public to shoulder the cost. The media environment exacerbates this situation. Channels such as Fox News function as echo chambers, amplifying misinformation and gaslighting viewers who are already struggling to understand the complexity of these issues. Hosts like Greg Gutfeld consistently present narratives that protect the actions of the administration while casting dissenting voices as radical or unpatriotic. In contrast, there are a few journalists, such as Jessica Tarlow, who attempt to provide a sober, analytical perspective. They are often drowned out by the noise of partisanship and ideological bias, but their work highlights the disparity between political messaging and factual reporting. Consider the broader implications of this political and financial environment. While the administration is redirecting billions toward questionable projects, the Democratic Party, which ostensibly represents opposition to this type of governance, is often complicit in its own ways. Billions and trillions of dollars are siphoned into private ventures and businesses that exploit government programs. Career politicians with minimal experience or expertise serve as placeholders, executing policies determined by hidden networks of influence rather than the public good. The result is a system where both parties, to varying degrees, enable corruption and inequity. At the center of this network of wealth extraction and political power are individuals whose actions are rarely scrutinized with sufficient intensity. Jared Kushner, for example, although not formally a White House official, appears to benefit financially from dealings with foreign governments, particularly Saudi Arabia. Howard Lutnick, who has been accused of engaging in Ponzi schemes in the past, is currently involved in Department of Homeland Security projects that may involve overvalued contracts for detention facilities. These operations, funded by taxpayer dollars, result in enormous profits for private individuals while raising questions about legality and ethics. The Department of Homeland Security itself has become a platform for extravagance and misappropriation. Secretary Christy Grimm has reportedly been involved in plans to purchase a super-luxury Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft, outfitted with amenities such as a bedroom, multiple showers, large screen televisions, and a full-service bar. Officially, this aircraft is intended to be used for deportations and other agency operations. Yet, insiders familiar with the situation express skepticism, pointing out that DHS already has sufficient aircraft for operational purposes, including a Gulfstream jet maintained by the Coast Guard. It is difficult to reconcile the notion that a plane capable of carrying 14 people in maximum comfort, complete with beds and entertainment systems, could plausibly serve the logistical needs of deportation flights that typically transport 50 to 100 detainees under strict security protocols. This suggests, rather clearly, that the aircraft is intended for the personal comfort and convenience of high-ranking officials rather than operational necessity. The use of taxpayer funds for such purposes constitutes, at the very least, a significant ethical breach and, at worst, criminal misappropriation. Meanwhile, Americans face very real economic hardships. Healthcare access is constrained or denied due to funding priorities and policy decisions that favor corporate and elite interests. Education budgets remain under pressure. Social safety net programs like Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits are threatened, and veterans' services have been proposed for cuts, provoking public backlash. Ordinary citizens struggle with rising rents, skyrocketing energy bills, and basic utilities that are increasingly unaffordable. The contrast between the luxurious lifestyles of political and corporate elites and the daily struggles of the majority of the population has reached unprecedented levels. This economic disparity extends into cultural and athletic domains. American athletes, even those competing at the highest levels, face significant financial barriers. Unlike other nations that provide state-sponsored support for Olympians and other elite competitors, Americans are often required to fund their training, travel, and equipment. Athletes must balance multiple jobs with rigorous training schedules, and yet they are subjected to public criticism when they fail to perform flawlessly on the global stage. This situation highlights the extent to which societal priorities are skewed to benefit the few, while ordinary citizens bear disproportionate burdens. The accumulation of wealth and power among a small elite is staggering. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and others continue to increase their fortunes through government contracts, tax incentives, and regulatory advantages that are largely invisible to the general public. These individuals and their corporations are, in effect, benefiting from a government system that prioritizes their interests over those of ordinary citizens. Meanwhile, Families across the country are cutting corners, sacrificing basic necessities, and navigating a financial reality that grows more precarious with each passing year. This situation is unsustainable. It is unjust. It is a direct threat to the social contract that underpins American democracy. Ordinary citizens have every right to be furious, to demand accountability, and to insist on structural reforms that ensure public funds serve the public interest rather than private enrichment. The mechanisms for action exist. Citizens can contact their elected representatives, advocate for transparency, and push for the election of leaders who are accountable to the public rather than to corporate or foreign interests. Congress, in particular, needs reform. Whether individuals are entrenched Democrats or staunch supporters of the current administration, they must be held accountable when they enable or fail to prevent corruption and mismanagement. The system requires new voices, individuals with a direct connection to the lived experiences of ordinary Americans rather than career politicians serving the interests of elites. True progressives and reformers must be empowered to implement policies that prioritize social welfare, equity, and justice. It is also worth noting the broader accountability landscape. Public scrutiny has increasingly focused on the legal and ethical obligations of high-profile figures, including Donald Trump. Reports suggest multiple instances of misconduct, some of which intersect with notorious cases such as those involving Jeffrey Epstein. While the legal process may unfold slowly, public awareness and activism are crucial in ensuring that accountability is not deferred indefinitely. In the meantime, citizens must share their experiences, highlighting the sacrifices they have been forced to make due to systemic inequities, whether it involves cutting back on basic household expenses, delaying medical care, or navigating rising costs for essential services. These stories provide critical context for understanding the full scope of the crisis. Public engagement, civic participation, and organized advocacy remain powerful tools for demanding reform and promoting accountability. Ultimately, this situation is about more than individual misdeeds. It is about structural corruption, concentrated wealth, and the erosion of public trust. The misappropriation of billions of dollars, the prioritization of elite comfort over public need, and the lack of meaningful oversight illustrate systemic weaknesses that threaten democratic governance. Citizens, journalists, and activists must continue to scrutinize, report, and mobilize to prevent the perpetuation of these inequities. The stakes are profound. Accountability is essential not only for justice, but for the long-term health of American society. Without meaningful reform, the cycle of corruption and mismanagement will continue, further entrenching disparities and undermining public confidence. This is a moment for action, for clear-eyed assessment, and for sustained public engagement to ensure that the United States fulfills its democratic ideals rather than serving as a vehicle for elite enrichment. In conclusion, the current administration has directed tens of billions of dollars toward initiatives that serve the interests of a select few, while ordinary citizens bear the financial and social costs. From luxurious aircraft for high-ranking officials to questionable contracts benefiting family members of political insiders, the pattern of misuse and misallocation is clear. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans struggle with health care, education, housing, and basic necessities. It is imperative that the public demand accountability, push for systemic reforms, and ensure that government resources serve the public good rather than private gain. This is not merely a political critique. It is a call to action. Citizens must remain vigilant, engaged, and organized. They must contact their representatives, participate in public discourse, and advocate for policies that prioritize equity and transparency. The future of American governance, the integrity of public institutions, and the well-being of ordinary citizens depend on it. Accountability is coming, but it will require concerted effort, collective awareness, and sustained civic participation to realize fully. The truth is more important than ever, and the responsibility to act rests with all of us.